The Chinese holding a robot Olympics, which is, mostly I think AI powered robots, not high drama sports, but interesting to see nonetheless.
Could AI get you to switch from your iPhone to your Android? Google just dropped their Pixel 10 lineup, and unsurprisingly, it was all about all of the new AI features.
Microsoft out this week integrating some AI into Excel. The company is now testing a new Copilot function. So if you ever wanted, an AI function in your spreadsheet, Microsoft is here for you.
Grammarly just rolled out 8 specialized AI agents inside its new Docs editor. Allegedly, now AI might be able to tell which papers are AI generated, and it can also tell you which of your papers is likely to get an A versus a D.
Could AI get you to switch your browser?
What happens when you abuse a chatbot? Anthropic is giving its Claude a new ability to end conversations that are becoming harmful or abusive.
This October, a first-of-its-kind academic conference is set to debut, and every paper will be researched, written, reviewed, and even presented with text-to-speech by AI. Annie, did you see these videos from the Robot Olympics they held in China this week? I got to start off with this because this is like my favorite videos of the week.
Oh my gosh, I did see them. They were absolutely hilarious.
What came to mind when you watched them? Were you like AI inspired or something else occurred to you?
No, I mean, it was like when you watch your kindergartner play their first year of soccer and like nobody knows the rules and everyone's tripping over each other and like fighting for the ball. It was like kindergarten soccer.
The soccer videos were some of my favorite. They're like these robots are falling over each other, flying around the ball and missing the ball with the kicks and whatever. But the Chinese holding a robot Olympics, which is, mostly I think AI powered robots will call it an AI story. But I thought this was hysterical. I don't know who was in the stands watching because it was really painful to watch. It wasn't not high drama sports, but interesting to see nonetheless.
Yeah, it was not high drama sports. I saw this little short in Instagram. I know you're not really on social media much, but it was like, robots are going to take over the world, also robots, and then all these ridiculous things of them tripping over each other and falling when they're trying to do basic stuff. And that's kind of what this Olympics reminded me of. I'm like, okay, the robots are not taking over the Olympics anytime soon.
No, I saw my favorite. I do watch a little bit of Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, and there's one of like a track race, and this robot starts veering towards the middle, and it just clocks this person walking in the inner lane. It just knocks away. Then the robot kind of looks confused, like, "What do I do?" And then it just starts moving again, and it made me laugh. If you're in a physical labor job, robots not coming. At least the humanoid robot's not coming for your job anytime soon. But it is kind of amazing progress. I mean, if you told me 5 or 10 years ago, we'd be having robots playing soccer, or whatever. I'd be going, that seems kind of far out there. And there they are doing the thing, playing the game.
There they are, and they will get smarter and better over time. So who knows how long it'll take, but they're on the board.
I'll make my bold prediction. It comes faster than you think. These things, I feel like they're just breakthrough moments. And then once you're able to kind of get in the game and play, but I think the pace of iteration will be fast. But to get to like real high quality human level sports will be harder than people. Like I think we'll get stuck in that middle ground, right? You'll get better than people expected robots to be, but not as good as people for a long period of time. It's my bold prediction. We'll see if I'm right in a couple of years.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot about phones in the past and sort of speculated what would make you switch from one to another. So the question is, could AI get you to switch from your iPhone to your Android? Google just dropped their Pixel 10 lineup. It's being, they dropped it at their Made by Google event. And unsurprisingly, it was all about all of the new AI features in the phone.
Tell me about this because I remember we had that ad we saw a couple weeks ago with Google kind of mocking Apple for the AI features coming soon, and soon has apparently been redefined to be over a year in length because they're not here yet. Maybe October at WWDC, we'll see something. But what did Google put out there for their Made by Google Pixel 10 event?
There's a couple of things that are important about this release. So they're using a brand new Tensor G5 chip. They say that it's a 60% faster AI performance using this chip. And then critically, it's all running sort of native on device. So there's more privacy. You don't have to be sending your data back and forth from the cloud. It's a 4 billion parameter Gemini nano model on device.
On devices, I mean, that's huge for performance as well as privacy, like really cool on device features. What kind of features am I powering with my Tensor G5 chip?
I mean, Jeff, all the features,
All
all
the
the
features.
features. Yeah, they had a lot of features, some which seemed very interesting and others that I was like, do I really need AI for that? But some of the things to unpack, there was a visual guidance thing, which seemed pretty cool. Like you can sort of take a picture, get real-time guidance, and even it looked like it'll circle in on the picture and kind of highlight for you, like this is the area you need to focus on hand. So you can
Mm.
imagine if you're trying to figure out how to use something or what button to click on something, it'll actually guide you through it using the camera. So that seemed pretty cool. There's a thing called Magic Queue, which is basically like an integration feature between all of your Gmail, your calendar, your messages, etc. So if a friend texts you, what time is your flight? It'll give you
Look at my Gmail, like,
look at your Gmail, find out what time your flight is, and then give a sample, like, here's what you should respond. And then critically, it also said if it doesn't know, it won't make up random stuff, which I thought was actually like a pretty
it's
good
good. It's a good
thing to
feature.
add.
Not
Yeah,
lying. Good
exactly.
feature. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll do the same type of things. Like if you see something in your messages and somebody says, "Do you want to have dinner at 7 o'clock?" It'll auto populate a suggestion in your calendar, like, "Do you want to add this dinner at 7 o'clock?" type of thing. So there's some context. They're calling that magic queue. Seems pretty cool. And then another thing that seems really cool. I don't know how many people actually have the need for this day to day, but a voice translation feature where that works across 10 different languages that'll sort of actually translate the speaker's words in another language into whatever your native language is, and it'll try to keep the voice authenticity as much as possible. So if you called me and left me a voicemail in Chinese, it would translate it to English and it would try to make it sound like you, even though the original text was in a different language or the original voice was in a different language. So that seems like a pretty cool feature if you have relatives that in other countries, or if you even have like business meetings or people you have to coordinate with in other who speak different languages, that could be potentially useful there. Less useful features, I think probably my award for the least useful feature was AI powered journal prompting. And I was like, I don't think I need an AI to give me a suggestion about what I should write in my journal about, but because it'll integrate with LM with the notebook. And so if you want to work on your mindfulness and your journaling using Notebook LM, it'll prompt different things of like things you might need to reflect on or think about. So that one seemed a little bit less useful, but maybe cool and,
Feels like it's
whatever,
just throwing
warm and
AI into the
fuzzy.
blender. Yeah, warm. The other one I saw that I loved was this conversational photo editing where you can kind of describe the changes you want. I talk about taking the Photoshop ease and putting it like on max level easiness, like just describe the change you want in a photo, remove the person on the left, whatever. I don't know how well that's going to work, but man, that seems like I've done now a bunch. I got an iPhone still. It has not made me switch, but I've got that like magic erase feature in Google Photos, and I'm in there like you know, we had it right there. I took a picture of a bunch of kids on a trip this summer. Did a scouts, and they took it in front of a restroom. There's a big restroom sign behind them. I'm like,
Take
we
that
don't need
out.
that. Took a banner, like a little banister rail out of a sunset picture. Like, we don't. We pretend there's no railing here where we're standing, and it works pretty well. But even just being able to say take the railing out. Oh, even easier. No more random scrabbling on my phone.
It does work pretty well, the Apple version, in different contexts, though. Like, if you're trying to do something pretty complex, sometimes it can't regenerate the new background really effectively. So I'm really curious how the voice sort of instructions work and how good it is. But obviously good enough for them to put in production and announce at their conference. So
But the key question is it good enough to get you to switch from iPhone? I'm not quite there yet. I'm sticking with my iPhone, see what comes out in October. Not for the AI features, but ChatGPT's on my iPhone, so I feel like my AI needs are mostly pretty well met there.
yeah, I tried to imagine when we were talking about this, like what would be the thing that would get me to switch from an iPhone? It's unclear to me. I think I'm locked in.
It's amazing the lock-in. The lock-in comes from places you don't expect, like the Find My iPhone feature I used with my kids. Like, this is all these little things like that are, like, not really AI features. I'm not saying the AI features are on par. I'm just going, "Hey, as long as I can access ChatGPT, I kinda like the Find My and the line with my trying to teach everybody to use some sort of a video conferencing as opposed to FaceTime, whatever. It's a barrier to entry it's a pretty serious lock-in.
Yeah, I think that's what Apple has. It's the integration with all your other devices, your watch and your computer and all of these things, your kids stuff, like you said, with the find my iPhone, find my friends. I wouldn't switch to Google and give all that up for Gemini for sure.
Not for Gemini, not for describe your photo edits. And thanks to Google Photos, I get nice Google Gemini-powered photo editing in the Google Photos app on my iPhone. So, works pretty well.
Cool.
All right. Well, if we're not gonna switch phones, maybe we'll switch spreadsheets. Microsoft out this week integrating some AI into Excel. I'm more of a Google Sheets user historically for, probably obvious reasons if you look at my job history. But the company is now testing a new Copilot function. They like that Copilot branding, and I think it's a good one for them, that lets users type natural language prompts into cells to do things like summarizing information, classifying data, generating tables. And what makes it interesting is it integrates with existing formulas in cells. So as you update other parts of the spreadsheet, this thing is going to rerun the model and actually kind of be a live AI feed into your spreadsheet. So if you ever wanted, an AI function in your spreadsheet, Microsoft is here for you.
I have to say this one did is making me a little tempted to try switching spreadsheets, at least to give it a try, but which model are they running to actually power this?
Right now they're running GPT-4.1 mini, so not on the 5 yet. I imagine they're gonna the beauty of this being integrated into the product is they can just switch this out under the hood whenever they want. But it is connected to the web. Sorry, it's not connected to the web or company documents. So you've got this kind of like simple model in the spreadsheet, but it's not part of the kind of broader Copilot ecosystem where it can do web searches or look at your other data or other spreadsheets, other documents to respond. And Microsoft is out there. You got to love this, warning users not to rely on it in high stakes situations since errors are still possible. So some of us remember when there were like a couple of mathematical errors that certain formulas you couldn't use in Excel because they didn't work reliably. Apparently, this one also, like if you're running your company financials, maybe don't ask for the sum from AI, just to actually use the spreadsheet formula. Although I got to say, just using any of these models to write spreadsheet formulas when you're like, hey, here's my data. Can like, how do I do this like very complicated formula? Is super useful, but maybe use the AI to write the formula as opposed to replace the formula, at least for now, if it's for critical stuff.
Yeah, I think the coolest thing that I thought about this is honestly what we just talked about with the photo editing was just sort of the natural language ability. Used to have to be like an Excel power user to like make something like a pivot table. And this is a little bit more like you put in, whatever Copilot, summarize these categories into these things and give me a sentiment analysis. And you can use a little bit more natural language type of instructions to do your work. And so I think it'll hopefully a lot of people who could get use out of some of the Excel functionality, but have not actually figured out how to write the formulas, maybe could get more use out of the functionality. Although I really would just love a day where we just can like stop using spreadsheets so darn much. But at least right now, when we're using so many spreadsheets, it's helpful to have the natural language in there. So if I want to go play with it, what do I do?
The starting to roll out now in the beta channel. So go switch yourself over to the Microsoft beta channel and the Frontier program, what they call it for web users. We'll see. You can. This one is rolling out slowly to kind of in a beta test mode. I gotta say, it hurts a little bit. I think in spreadsheets. Like my brain works like a spreadsheet in many ways. So when you say we need fewer spreadsheets, I die a little bit in there.
Well, you can still use spreadsheets. I just for all the people who
I
don't
like my
think in
spreadsheet.
spreadsheets, they can,
Yeah, here you go. Now you can,
they
if you
need
don't
something
think in
different.
formulas, now Excel's here to help you out. And I think the sentiment analysis example you give is great because not only can you build the formulas with the LLM, but it's actually doing something that it would be. I don't know if I had like comments in a Excel file and I wanted to figure out which ones were positive and which ones were negative. I don't know that I could build a formula to do that was reliable, but the LLM certainly could do that. And kind of a great use case. Doesn't need external data, but you can now process and like a function you might love. Is it happy or sad comment? Now you can find out and put it in Excel.
Yeah, that functionality really I was like, "Oh, this is not something I could write a formula for right now." I would have to have a human go through and code every single item and select from a drop down. So, having that piece of a spreadsheet actually being able to translate some sort of like feeling or more of the human context into the numbers, I thought was pretty cool.
Very cool.
Well, let's talk about schoolwork, one of our favorite topics.
Back to school time. Good time for it.
School time, yep. So as we're training our kids on sort of what to watch out for AI, one thing they might want to watch out for is that allegedly now AI might be able to tell which papers are AI generated or heavily AI assisted, and it can also tell you which of your papers is likely to get an A versus a D.
Really? I don't know. I'm skeptical. Call me skeptical. What are you talking about here? It'd be great if my kids can just keep running their paper until the AI tells them it's going to get an A and they get all A's. That's a nice feature if it works.
We'll see if it works. But so Grammarly just rolled out 8 specialized AI agents inside its new docs editor. They're some for free users, some for pro users. I think the plagiarism looker you have to be a pro user, but some of the sort of more basic stuff you can do as a free user. But so it's basically targeting sort of common pain points. So there's an AI grader that'll estimate your score. Interestingly, what it actually does is it looks at publicly available information about your instructor and it'll actually estimate your score based on who your instructor is if they have publicly available information. So that was pretty wild. It'll sort of suggest concrete fixes and changes. It'll do an analysis about how a reader might react to your paper, right? If there's certain things that'll land or not land with your audience, which is pretty interesting. Then, of course, the things that everybody needs, just the like regular proofreader type of things are in there. Paraphrasing. There's a citation finder feature, so it'll help you find, the source that you need if you're going to need to add a citation in there so that you don't have to go in and remember back in the old days when we'd have to like go and dig through books and like write our
Yeah, yeah. To
citation. Now
find
it'll
your
just find it.
citations.
Yeah, not a great use of time, but would quickly change your grade from an A to a B. And so now and then the sort of expert review agent that's going to comb all of the sort of public available content on your paper and see if there's heavily plagiarized pieces where you've sort of lift and shifted certain people's concepts, ideas, or even words. So pretty interesting set of features. Don't know how well they work, but if they do work well, could be game changing.
Yeah, this is really interesting to me. I was thinking about this one this morning because, as schools think about how do we adapt to AI, tools that are general purpose like ChatGPT are really hard to endorse because you can have it do everything from proofread and give you comments to just write for you. But, companies like Grammarly that are focused on that education use case, and I think they don't really have a write for me. They have a, okay, you write and I'll review. And, so I think it'll be nice to see if there are tools that really put the right guardrails to point students in the right direction that schools might be able to endorse or leverage and really point students towards it, or not like, oh yeah, I mean, ChatGPT is a great research assistant. You should use it for that. But also, if you just give it the assignment, it will just do it for you. So maybe just don't ask it to do that, please. And having tools that are a little bit more, kind of guardrail to do the right things and to not be available to do the things that the schools are concerned about could be really helpful in helping schools kind of embrace the opportunity to have some, I think the idea of like having real-time feedback on your writing that the way your teacher might do, but you write a draft and you get all the feedback that she's going to give you, you can edit it without having to go through that process. That's actually, I think, super useful and educational for the kids. These are cool student features. Are there any teacher-oriented features that they announced, or is this all a win for the students and a challenge for the teachers to figure out who's using what?
Yeah, I mean, the main feature for the teachers is the plagiarism checker, right? So it's an AI detector, like I said before, pro only, so you have to be a paying user to get this. And basically, the company is trying to address exactly the problem that you just sort of raised, which is they're saying we want to be able to help educate students to be AI literate without short circuiting their learning. So we want to give tools that are going to be helpful to the student and tools that are helpful to the teacher, so the teacher can also have visibility into whether AI is short circuiting their learning and being counterproductive, so they can, of course, hopefully get them sort of back on track. So, a pretty cool set of features all in. I think it'll be useful.
Exciting. We talked about whether we could get AI to switch your phone, but now another question for you. Could AI get you to switch your browser? That's a more important one.
I feel like probably not. Why would I switch?
Well, so, we talked before about Perplexity had launched their Comet browser, and I finally, I was very upset. Perplexity, if anybody's out there, like I did not get in before a couple of my friends, but they sent me a little link, and fortunately, they didn't check that I was on the list. So I got the Comet browser. I've been using it as my primary browser for the last week or so. And I got to say, having AI, because I do so much of my work in a browser, I mean, it's just kind of like my interface for pretty much everything other than maybe Slack. Just happens in the browser. It's super useful to have an AI assistant that's sitting alongside and, available to summarize any page I'm looking at, answer any question about a topic I'm not understanding without opening a new window or going to a new place. But one of the more interesting things, and I think we've seen a lot of this movement towards agentic capabilities. I was on some site. You ever been on one of these sites and like you don't know how to cancel your account or unsubscribe or whatever? It's like, signing up
All
is
the
easy,
time.
but impossible. So I just like, can you like help me unsubscribe from this? And it started navigating the site and searching things. And it was like, it just kind of took over the tab. And I went to a different tab and did something else, read some news articles, or whatever. And I came back, it was like, yeah, I found it right here. And it kind of navigated the whole thing and found the unsubscribe option for me. And so that it's really interesting that it's starting to, it didn't book me restaurant reservations, though supposedly it can do things like that, but when it's actually able to take over your browser and navigate and do things for you in the world, it's kind of cool. And I think it changes the way you think about it because now it's like an agent. It's like I'm saying, hey, I've delegated a task to comment, go do this thing for me. Let me know when you're ready. And it's kind of can be any task on the web, at least, within some constraints. So I've loved both the simplicity of asking the assistant who can just sit there and see my web page and see my browsing history, questions as I'm working, as well as having this kind of agent. It's been kind of fun. And it's, I will be excited if ChatGPT puts one of these out, but the idea of the browser, the AI kind of taking over my experience of the internet and being kind of my interface to the web. Where I'm asking a question of the agent and it's doing the whole web thing to find or do the thing, do whatever action I want is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. I honestly, I might be willing to switch my browser just to make it easier to unsubscribe from memberships because it feels like anything that you want to buy on the internet these days, you have to agree to a membership, and you maybe only want to try that thing one time. So I'd be happy to have a browser that could cancel those things for me. I was reading this interview with Sam Altman last week where he was basically saying like older people use ChatGPT and AI generally as like a research tool. So like a Q&A type of thing. Younger people use it as an operating system. And so it does seem to sort of like there's definitely a need for this capability to be within a browser so it can be a holistic operating system. And I definitely hope that OpenAI and others will sort of follow suit because Perplexity just hasn't picked up as much like user loyalty and picked up as much speed as some of the other ones. But I could see a lot of use in having a browser.
Yeah, I've been using Perplexity more, obviously, because it's now built into my browser, and I see the use, but I also am often missing my custom instructions for this podcast when I'm doing research or writing scripts and, all the memories I've got in ChatGPT. That lock-in, it's not technical model in nature, but is product-oriented, memories-oriented, customizations-oriented. It's real, in terms of my willingness to switch. It was much easier to switch the browser, which is just kind of a window into the web, so I don't browser's not that important. It's what I'm doing in the browser that matters. And so that was a pretty easy switch. But switching models, switching providers, not even models so much, has been a little more, I'll say, challenging. And now I do worry about like, shit, now there's just things that Perplexity knows about me that aren't in my chat GPT. I got to like transfer some information about my preferences over there. So that may be, as we talk about the iPhone lock-in, the lock-in in the models, maybe less the models and more the things it knows about you and how it integrates into your life. And those things are pretty important.
Yeah.
Well, while we talk about agents, we've had a few conversations about the kind of multi-agent scientific world and the kind of research that's being done by AI teams. But this October, a first of its kind academic conference is set to debut, and every paper will be researched, written, reviewed, and even presented with text to speech by AI. It's called Agents for Science, and it was created by Stanford's James Zhao.
Well, that's pretty cool. What's the inspiration for this?
Yes, I thought it was pretty cool. I kinda wanna watch it, go to it, whatever. I don't even
I
have
do
to
too.
go if
Yeah.
it's all virtual. But, so James was one of the scientists that created one of these virtual labs, of AI agents acting like scientists, a project we discussed earlier where they designed new COVID-19 nanobody therapies in under a day with results good enough to be published in Nature, but Nature refused to credit the AI as one of the authors, which James felt was inappropriate. He felt like it had a lot of value, so it kind of inspired him to flip the script. And Agents for Science, the AI must be listed as the lead author, with other AIs handling reviews and a panel of human experts, including some Nobel laureates, weighing in on quality. So the review of some of the work and the kind of ranking of the best papers will be at least somewhat done by humans, but the writing has to be primarily AI with the occasional human mentorship for the AIs. But it's supposed to be AI driven science, so it should be really interesting.
That's super fascinating. You said October, right?
It's supposed to be in October, so we'll mark it on your calendars. And I guess the papers are going to be actually presented. So voice to text. I don't know if they're going to use avatars to present these, but there's certainly a lot of skeptics that these AI, even the teams of agents and whatever, can't come up with novel ideas. There's not creativity. I mean, I think it's unknown if that will be true, but we certainly have already seen that just the ability to explore in more full depth a problem space in a way that may be impractical for humans is a thing these agents can do. And if it becomes a problem of not well-educated bodies, but electricity to put a team of really smart people on problems, I think in many areas of research, the problem is not do we have people with genius IQs that have to solve some unknown problem. It's like, can we apply some of the things we know in standard techniques to questions where we haven't asked it before? So I think there'd be, even if it's not going to be the next Nobel Prize winning set of papers, a lot of interesting stuff to come out of this kind of work. And it's exciting to see a full conference dedicated to it. So I will be dialing in, watching the Zooms or the YouTubes after the fact for some of these papers and see how they go. And really curious to see what the scientific community thinks of the work that is entered into this thing.
Yeah, it sounds super fascinating. I'm excited for that. Well, Jeff, what happens when you abuse a chatbot? Anthropic is giving its Claude AI chatbot a new ability, and the new ability is to end conversations that are becoming harmful or abusive.
All right. So in this conversation, tell me a little bit about how does this work? Sounds useful. I like ending abusive conversations. That seems like a net positive. What does it do?
Yeah, so basically, like right now, as we've talked about a bunch on the pod, the AI is gonna always try to keep engaging to try to solve whatever problem you've given it. It's hard to sort of turn it off. What is actually is getting rolled out with this feature is that in their Opus 4 and 4.1 models, there's this sort of last resort where if a user is repeatedly trying to get Claude to generate harmful content, even after Claude has refused, it can just sort of stop responding, and then the person can't continue talking on that particular chat. They can open up a different chat, have a different thing, but they can't continue pulling on that thread with Claude. So, hopefully protect against the sort of jailbreak type of things that we talked about, getting around the safety protocols. But interestingly, I don't know how I feel about this. Well, actually, I do know how I feel about it. I feel not so great. But the way that the company phrased this wasn't like, "Hey, we're gonna protect it from giving harmful content or getting broken, or getting, sort of safety protocol usurped." What it said instead was that it's protecting the welfare of the AI model itself.
The welfare of the AI model. So this is about not harm coming from the information being given to the user, but harm being done to the AI system's psyche, mentality. Like I don't know what to describe it. That's the rationale.
That's the rationale. So basically in testing, Anthropic basically said, "Hey, there's certain types of prompts that when you keep doing this type of prompt, Claude shows distress." So if you ask Claude to, produce sexual content involving minors, it makes Claude uncomfortable and distressed. If you ask it for, and I mean, that would make me uncomfortable too. So I understand Claude's point of view there. But if you ask for instructions that could fuel violence or terrorism, this type of thing, it causes distress to Claude. And so with the new update, Claude can just terminate the chat, like I said, and then the person can't sort of keep pulling on that thread and keep having that conversation with you. So anyway, it's interesting because it really puts sort of this unusual personification on the chatbot as the chatbot having sort of like feelings and opinions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not I don't know, what's your you said, like, you're not a big fan. You're not a I kind of in that camp, but tell me your rationale, and I feel like we ought to bring in our last story, which is about this kind of piece about seemingly conscious AI, because this really dials into that concept of, like, are we treating the AI like it's a conscious entity in some way, shape, or form? Is it really should we be? Is that the right approach? And it seems like at least Anthropic is saying, "Yeah, we ought to be treating it like, at least in this way, a conscious entity that has feelings, and we need to protect those feelings and, emotional distress." That seems kind of both not accurate to the way the technology works and kind of a dangerous precedent to set in terms of what kind of rights or privileges we're giving to what is at the core, just a piece of software.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And just sort of to the last thing you mentioned was this paper that was put out by the CEO of Microsoft AI, and it's a somewhat provocative essay that basically says we need to. He's warning people against what he's calling seemingly conscious AI, which is basically like people getting the sense that AI is conscious being just because it has memory or personality traits or sort of a subjective experience. And he warns against what he's calling AI psychosis, which is just like a human believing that the AI is a conscious being. So I have to say, between reading this Anthropic thing and being somewhat triggered about, like, maybe that's not a fair word to use, but being somewhat like skeptical of like, really, Claude got harmed by this. And then reading this other thing, I went through this deep philosophical rabbit hole about what is consciousness. And it turns out it is a hard question. I'm like, this is the 2 a.m. college debate. Like, what is consciousness? I don't know. Like, at some point,
How do you really know that anybody you're interacting with is in any way having a real experience and isn't just we're not in the matrix and you're the only human left? Like, yeah, is there really way to tell? It's a great philosophy class debate for the undergrads, grad students in the middle of the night in the dorm for sure.
100%. And I think, like, for me with this Claude thing, I'm like, I'm not really ready to buy that an AI model can have feelings, right? So, like, that's the thing. Like, I don't think it can have feelings or emotions. It can maybe like mimic those things to be helpful in the conversation, but does it really have feelings? Like, is it really uncomfortable about this child sexual content, or is it just been programmed to know that that's not something it should do, and so therefore it's not doing it? And I think the point that the Microsoft CEO makes that's really important is he says that, like, we need to be building AI for the betterment of humans. And so that should be the focus, is on the user and the human component of things and how the AI can help the humans instead of building for the AIs. Cause then we're going to get into all of these weird, wonky policy issues like, should they have rights? Should they have citizenships? Like, all, how are we preventing them from suffering and so on and so forth? And it's like, how much can a model or a machine really suffer?
Yeah, well, the machines from the Matrix might disagree with you on here, but I tend to agree with you. That was science fiction, just to be clear, not science. But it was really interesting to see this because if you when I read through, Mustafa Suleiman's piece, he was really interesting saying that hey, we're going to reach a point at which these things will be able to mimic consciousness in a very real way, and it's dangerous because they're not really conscious, and it's dangerous. I think his call to arms is sort of don't build things in such a way that they're going to appear conscious to users, and like almost exactly saying don't do exactly what I read it is what the Anthropic guys came out and did, going like don't personify the thing. I loved his phrase. Built, we want to think he described it as we want to AI should be built as a tool for humans, not as a digital human. And I thought that was a great kind of summarization of it. But it did seem to be like almost exactly arguing that we should be making choices exactly opposite of Anthropic, saying, hey, this kind of decision that personifies it, attributes feelings and emotional reactions to the chats, to the AI, is really destructive to our ability to build AI as a tool that can help, human flourishing. It can help us progress the way every technological tool through history has been used for good and for bad, but ultimately as a tool to improve the outcomes for humankind. And he clearly sees AI as being able to do that, but not if we end up putting ourselves in a place where we're worried about he's like, let's worry about the welfare of the earth and people and the environment and all the things that we have to worry about. And we don't need to be building AI tools that take us down a rabbit hole of thinking they're people and need to be concerned about their welfare. So it was really interesting to see these two stories juxtaposed this week with what Anthropic did and what Suleiman came out to say.
Yeah. I mean, the whole conversation we've had in the past about how humanoid your robot is, I think is related to this too. When you talk to a chatbot, it already feels pretty human-like in a lot of ways. It can really customize its writing to you. You can change its voice. We've already seen issues with, children and even I think, adults too, developing sort of unhealthy emotional bonds with some of the chatbots. But if you take that really smart chatbot and you put it in a humanoid figure, it's going to become even more confusing for people to sort of really separate the human from the machine type of thing. So that's why I think, some of the conversations we've had about like, well, if I have a robot do my laundry, I really would rather it be the disembodied arms and not like the
Mhm.
Jetsons, Sally or whatever. Is it Sally in the Jetsons?
So, but even Sally is like pretty clearly like
Uh,
humanoid-ish, but not like she's a robot. Like you can
she's
look
a
at her and say,
robot.
"Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a robot." It's not a person. And a lot of the humanoid robots now are looking much more human. And Apple out there trying to make them more expressive in their physical, kind of like the Pixar lamp and how you can kind of see the shaying its head and that kind of. So I think it'll be interesting, and I think this call to arms of saying, hey, we need to be very careful how we do that because it's got a lot of unintended consequences is a really good one. And you could tell from his piece that I expect he's going to plans to write more pieces in the vein of these kind of difficult topics. And I also loved. Maybe we'll leave the ridge. He opened up saying, "I write to think," and kind of saying, "This is I don't have the answer, but I find that the process of writing down my thoughts forces me to come more fully to grips with what I'm thinking on a topic." And it's really true when you have a difficult topic, it's easy to have a chat like this and sound reasonably intelligent. It's much harder to write down a cogent 5, 10 page thing that makes sense without really understanding your perspective. And often when I try to do that, I find it takes me a long time because I don't really know what I think at the core. And the process of writing makes you kind of think through it. So I think we'll see some more interesting pieces to talk about coming from him as he thinks through some of these interesting issues. But I really enjoyed this one. Was worth the longer read that it was, and perfect pairing with the Anthropic story. I went, huh? He's kind of telling the Anthropic guys, don't do that again.
Don't do it again. I totally agree. I think everyone should read this piece. It was very well written, and I hope he puts out more.
I'm sure he will, and we will read them. But for now, that's a wrap for this week on What the AI. We'll be back next week with more insights, breakdown, and some of those just head scratching What the AI moments. Be sure to subscribe and share this episode with any friends or colleagues who are figuring out AI in their world. And if you've got a question, a wild prompt, or just a story we ought to cover, email us at whattheai.fm. We'd love to feature it in an upcoming episode. Until then, Annie, I will see you next week.
See you next week.
Ready to expand your AI knowledge? Want to become the go-to AI expert in your organization? Take the next step with Upstart's AI certification for financial services. This comprehensive course simplifies the fundamentals of artificial intelligence for financial services professionals. Both the course and this podcast are brought to you by Upstart, whose leading AI lending marketplace connects millions of consumers to banks and credit unions that leverage Upstart's AI technology to deliver superior credit products, from personal loans to auto loans to home equity lines of credit. If you learned something useful this week, hit subscribe on YouTube or leave us a rating on iTunes or Spotify. Your support can help others discover What the AI. And finally, share your biggest AI questions and insights with us at email@whattheai.fm. We really do read every message and we do our best to cover them all on the show.